Exploring a world without Hitler. The absence of Hitler would have radically transformed the landscape of World War II, possibly leading to a conflict with different alliances and battlegrounds. Without his aggressive expansionism and ideology, the war might have taken on a different form, potentially less driven by the fervor of racial purity and Lebensraum. Without Hitler at its helm, the Nazi Party might have struggled to gain the same traction in German politics. A different leader could have steered the party towards a less militaristic and genocidal direction, potentially altering its infamous legacy and the extent of its atrocities. The Holocaust, a horrific result of Hitler's extreme anti-Semitic ideology, might not have occurred in the same magnitude or even at all. While anti-Semitism was not exclusive to Hitler, his obsessive drive to exterminate Jews was a key factor in the Holocaust's execution. In Hitler's absence, alternative figures such as Ernst Röhm or Gregor Strasser could have led Germany, possibly emphasizing the socialist aspects of National Socialism. This shift might have led to a different internal and external policy stance, impacting Germany's approach to expansion and its relationship with other nations. The global political landscape and alliances would have seen a significant shift without Hitler. Countries that were drawn into WW2 due to aggression from Nazi Germany might have found themselves facing different adversaries or even allies, potentially reshaping the entire course of the 20th century. The development and use of nuclear weapons might have taken a different trajectory without World War II propelling the urgency of the Manhattan Project. The global arms race could have been delayed or even taken alternative paths, focusing perhaps more on conventional or chemical weapons, altering the dynamics of global power. Without Hitler's leadership, the Nazi Party could have seen a decline in its radical ideologies, or possibly been overtaken by another faction with a different agenda. The absence of such a charismatic and ruthless leader might have meant a less aggressive expansionist policy, potentially averting the war or changing its course entirely. The Holocaust, a horrific consequence of Hitler's ideology, may not have occurred in the same manner or scale. Without his obsessive drive for racial purity, systemic genocide might have been averted. However, anti-Semitism and other forms of bigotry could still have persisted in various forms across Europe and beyond. Alternative leaders stepping into Hitler's shoes might have led Germany in a vastly different direction. Figures like Ernst Röhm or Rudolf Hess had their own visions for the country, potentially focusing more on internal restructuring rather than external conquests, which could have reshaped European politics in unforeseeable ways. The effect on global politics and alliances in Hitler's absence would have been profound. The Axis powers might have been weaker or never formed, leading to different alliances and perhaps even preventing the Cold War's bipolar world. The political landscape of the 20th century could have been markedly different, with unforeseen consequences for international relations. The absence of Hitler could have led to a vastly different trajectory for Germany's economy and technological landscape. Without the war's drain on resources, Germany might have continued its pre-war advancements, potentially becoming a leader in fields such as automotive, engineering, and physics earlier than in our timeline. A different regime might have nurtured art and culture rather than suppressing it. Freed from the grip of Nazi censorship and propaganda, the art scene in Germany could have flourished, producing influential movements and figures that would shape the global cultural landscape in ways we can only imagine. Without the notorious leader steering its course, the Nazi Party might have struggled to gain or maintain power, possibly dissipating or never becoming the force it did. This could have allowed for a more moderate government, potentially averting the catastrophic events of the Holocaust and altering the course of European history. The role of the United States in a changed World War II scenario could have been significantly different. Without the attack on Pearl Harbor as a catalyst, America's entry into the conflict might have been delayed, or its involvement could have taken on a non-combatant role, focusing on economic aid and diplomatic efforts. The British Empire's response to a global threat not spearheaded by Hitler would likely have been characterized by diplomatic and military strategies aimed at maintaining its colonies and influence. Without the unifying threat of Nazi Germany, the British might have faced earlier challenges to their colonial rule from independence movements. The outcomes for various resistance movements in a world without Hitler would likely shift dramatically. Without the unifying threat of Nazism, these groups might have found different causes, potentially leading to a more fragmented or localized focus. Their efforts could have been directed towards combating other forms of oppression or colonialism, changing the course of their contributions to history. International law and human rights might have evolved differently without the Holocaust as a catalyst for change. The atrocities committed under Hitler's regime were a significant factor in the formation of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Without this dark period, the global community might have taken longer to recognize the need for such comprehensive protections. The consequences for colonial and post-colonial history would be profound. Without World War II weakening colonial powers, the decolonization process could have been delayed or taken a different trajectory. Nations might have struggled longer under colonial rule, potentially leading to different independence movements and outcomes in the global South. The role of women in a world without Hitler could have seen a slower progression in terms of rights and recognition. WW2 was a catalyst for women entering the workforce in unprecedented numbers and taking on roles traditionally reserved for men. Without this push, the fight for gender equality might have faced additional hurdles, delaying progress in various sectors. Education and historical narrative would undoubtedly be influenced in a world absent of Hitler's impact. Without the lessons learned from WW2 and the Holocaust, curricula might focus more on other aspects of history. This could lead to a generation with a vastly different understanding of human rights, war, and the importance of vigilance against totalitarianism. Without World War II as a catalyst, the development of the European Union might have taken a drastically different route. The war's aftermath pushed for unity as a means of ensuring peace and preventing future conflicts. Without this impetus, European countries might have pursued more insular, nationalistic policies, delaying or altering the formation of a unified Europe. The fate of displaced persons and refugees would have been markedly different without the mass displacements caused by WW2. The global refugee crisis that followed the war played a significant role in shaping international refugee policies. Without it, the modern asylum system might be less developed, leaving the world ill-prepared for future humanitarian crises. Aviation technology and warfare might have evolved at a slower pace without the urgent innovations driven by WW2. The war accelerated advancements in aircraft design, radar, and jet propulsion. In a world without such conflict, these technological leaps could have emerged more gradually, impacting commercial aviation and military strategy differently. The space race and technological innovation would likely have taken a different trajectory without WW2. The war's end saw significant German scientists, including Wernher von Braun, moving to the US and USSR, directly contributing to space exploration efforts. Without this transfer of knowledge, the timeline of human spaceflight might have been delayed. The evolution of spy and intelligence operations would have been significantly altered in a world without Hitler. WW2 saw the birth and sophistication of modern espionage and signals intelligence. Without the imperative of wartime intelligence, the development of agencies like the CIA and MI6, as well as technologies for espionage, might have been less advanced or taken a different path altogether. The global economic systems would have faced a starkly different trajectory without the aftermath of World War II. The Great Depression's recovery processes could have unfolded without the massive military expenditures and post-war rebuilding efforts, possibly leading to a slower, more organic economic recovery without the wartime boom. In a world without Hitler and the consequent war, the fate of eugenics and scientific racism might have taken a different path. Without the egregious examples set by Nazi ideology, these discredited theories could have lingered longer in academic and social policies, potentially influencing racial and genetic research in more subtle ways. Art, literature, and film would likely have evolved without the profound impact of World War II's thematic backdrop. The absence of such a globally unifying and dividing event might have led to a more diverse exploration of themes in cultural productions, lacking the intense focus on conflict, loss, and the human condition seen in wartime and post-war works. The influence on psychological and sociological studies without the horrors of the Holocaust and the extreme conditions of World War II might have been profound. Studies on trauma, obedience, and authoritarianism, heavily influenced by wartime observations, could have developed differently, potentially delaying understanding of human behavior under stress and authority. Environmental changes and war-induced innovations would have charted a different course in the absence of World War II. The accelerated developments in technology and industry, driven by the war effort, dramatically altered landscapes and ecosystems. Without this, the 20th century might have seen a slower, potentially more thoughtful approach to industrialization and environmental impact. The role of religion and the church in an altered Europe without World War II might have evolved distinctly. Without the upheaval and moral questioning brought by the war, religious institutions could have maintained stronger influence over societal norms and values, potentially slowing the secularization trends observed in post-war Europe. In a world spared from the devastations of World War II, fashion and design might have taken a different trajectory, focusing less on utility and more on innovation and extravagance. The absence of wartime restrictions could have allowed for a flourishing of creative expression, leading to an earlier emergence of bold styles and trends. The music and entertainment industry, unmarred by the war's grim realities, could have focused on uplifting themes, possibly delaying the rise of protest music and socially conscious art forms. This might have fostered a global entertainment landscape more centered around escapism and the celebration of peace and prosperity. Without the impact of war on transportation and infrastructure development, advancements in these areas could have been slower, following a more gradual and possibly more sustainable path. The focus might have remained on enhancing existing modes of transport rather than rapidly developing new technologies out of necessity. The evolution of language and communication might have been markedly different without the influence of Nazi censorship and the urgent needs of wartime propaganda. Freed from these constraints, linguistic and communicative innovations could have been more organic, fostering a diverse and rich global dialogue uninhibited by the shadow of war. The transformation in transportation and infrastructure development would have taken a divergent path without the urgent wartime need for advancements. The focus might have shifted towards civilian use and convenience, fostering innovations that prioritized public transport systems and sustainable urban planning over military logistics and strategic roadways. Language and communication could have evolved without the shadow of Nazi censorship, leading to a richer, more diverse media landscape. Freed from the constraints of propaganda and suppression, linguistic diversity and the free exchange of ideas might have flourished, contributing to a more interconnected and understanding global community. Family dynamics and population growth patterns would have likely seen a less dramatic shift in the absence of war. With fewer lives lost and families torn apart, population recovery rates in affected countries could have been steadier, fostering a sense of stability and continuity that was otherwise disrupted. International cuisine and food security could have experienced a less drastic transformation without the global upheaval of war. The culinary landscape might have evolved at a more natural pace, focusing on regional specialties and innovations rather than rationing and the necessity of food preservation techniques that emerged during wartime scarcity. Reflecting on a world without Hitler offers a speculative yet profound understanding of how one individual's influence can alter the course of history. This alternate reality invites us to consider the myriad ways global events shape our cultural, technological, and social landscapes, shedding light on the interconnectedness of human endeavors across time and space.